back, everyone, to another episode of the Works Plus TechTalk Podcast, where we dive into all things polished concrete. Today, we've got a very special guest, and many of you may already know him. And he's a second-generation concreter, a seasoned concrete polisher, and a mastermind behind one of the most popular Facebook communities for our industry. You might already know of it. It's called the Badass Concrete Polishers and Decorative Concrete Masters. Please welcome to the podcast, Justin Blankenship. Justin, welcome.
Welcome. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, really appreciate you joining us. It's other side of the world, other side of the day for you. So really appreciate you taking the other time to join us. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Yes, sir.
Well, let's kick off. I contacted you a little while back in regards to doing this podcast. We started talking about it, and I'm really happy that we finally found ourselves here. And part of the reason why it's taken a long time is because you're such a busy man, which is fantastic. And it's always nice to be able to get an instant response and set up a podcast straight away. But I think testimony to how busy you are and successful in what you're doing in all aspects of life right now, you're a hard man to actually tie down. So it's really good to be sitting down with you now and having a chat. So what I wanted to talk about was the forum. Badass Forum. Many of our listeners are going to know you from that. I look at it, and it looks like it's got to be potentially the most successful forum of our industry in the world. And I'd love to know how it started.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this was 7-8 years ago. At this point, the time is flying. There was a time where there was a handful of forums out there, but they were all kind of just wild west. It was more of just kind of a shit show, to be honest, right? And there really wasn't a lot of structure. There was tidbits of information and helpful stuff here or there when you're, ducking the punches and, my girlfriend then, which is my wife now, she mentioned something like, why don't you just make your own? And I was like, you know what? That's a good idea. And I did it. And, here we are all these years later, about 15,000 members. So, I just thought, if you want something done right, do it yourself. And hey, we ended up with this community and, it turned out to be what it is. So
that's fantastic. It's really amazing to see how big it is. And like you say, just the amount of knowledge and the sharing in the community is fantastic. It's also one of the things that actually stands out about the Badass Forum. And I think I was on some of those other earlier ones that you're talking about. But one of the things that I've really noticed about the Badass Forum is, I guess, not just the openness of sharing, but the honesty in the group. You've got a few, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of issues with people calling each other out, which in our industry, it's predominantly a self-governed industry, is actually helpful. How do you balance that?
So, we do pride ourselves still on, not over moderating and not over filtering, right? But there is a time and a place, right?
Yeah.
So, we do have a moderator team, and nowadays other admins I appointed, right? Because before, when I started this group, I was, the operations manager at my parents' company. So, when I went to work, I was at work. When I got off work, I was off work. So I had more time to kind of oversee and manage it myself. Well, now being self-employed the last 5+ years, I'm always at work, at least mentally, right? So I'm not quite on there as much as I used to be, right? So I can't keep up with who said what, and they hurt my feelings, and The concrete days of our lives, right? Like I'll have people message me and there's always some new drama, something unfolding. I can't really keep up with all of it. But I do have an admin moderator team. We have like a little group chat and they'll bring, stuff to my attention, or they have the certain power to do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But out of respect, a lot of them will bring stuff to my attention for approval and I'll just give the yay or nay and they'll carry it out. But for the most part, we'll let a little banner go, a little stuff here, there, but at a certain point, if you cross the line, that's where we cut it off.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. I can certainly relate to the pressures of running the forum and also having full-time job as well. It's 5 years into it, into your own business. How does it feel, mate?
It depends on the day, I guess. So, being self-employed, it's definitely a roller coaster ride. The ups, the downs, the in-betweens, and it's been a long road. We'll just say that. So you definitely build your resilience. So, there's a statistic here in the United States, at least, that 50% of entrepreneurs fail within their first 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're at 5.5 years. So, there's something to be said for that. And, to be honest, like a lot of us, we're good tradesmen, right? Like we're good at our craft, like doing floors. Well, guess what I don't do at all anymore? I don't do floor. It's finance, HR, sales, market. It's all the other hats that you don't know shit about. I'm a floor guy, man. You know what I'm saying? Because all my time now is spent in the office, which I have a home office. So my commute is very nice from the bedroom across the hall. My wife don't like it too much some days, but I got myself in the position out of the field because, it goes back to the old saying, when you're busy working in the business, you're not working on the business. And, it got to the point where I'm out there trying to put down epoxy floors or run grinders and, a call's coming in and you're ill and angry and not, trying to answer sales calls and, I'll send you that when I get home. It's 10 o'clock. I'm trying to send it just becomes way too much. But then when you step back from the field, that's where all the other obstacles and hurdles come. Because you can't clone yourself. And now you have to set up things in a certain manner, accountability and SOPs and checklists. And there's a lot that goes into it that, a lot probably don't recognize. Obviously the bigger fish do, they get it, right? But something you kind of just grow into.
When did this transition happen for you off the tools into the office onto the business?
That's a good question. I want to say roughly probably between the last 2 to 3 years. Slowly made that transition. Started slowly phasing out, right? Because, I do have an operations manager that I took under my wing many, many years ago when I worked for my parents' company. He worked under me and my wife, and it's actually, her nephew, right? So took him under my wing, taught him everything we knew. And like I said, he worked under me when I was just, a foreman. So he seen me in that position, worked from the ground up like I did from the ground up. Started over here. And at first I threw him to the sharks, right? We did a lot of commercial work, traveling, sub work out to us when I first got started because I wasn't self-sufficient, right? So I kind of just threw him to the sharks. And you learn a lot of good lessons that way, right? And then it got to the point where I became more self-sufficient, my own leads, and I was more in the field. And he was my right hand. But then, like I said, slowly just started phasing it out and kind of just threw him back to the sharks. But at this point, he already had a little bit of experience. I threw him out once, right? keep in mind that was all commercial work versus this next go around was a lot of residential work. And there's something to be said about residential. A lot of guys don't like residential, dealing with homeowners. I'm sure you can imagine the characters and the kind of the nitpicky factor, and you've really got to be on your A game and really think everything through. Because I mean, you know, some stuff you can understand, but some stuff people are just outrageous, right? You know, so trying to make everybody happy, you're almost always destined to fail. But we do a pretty good job. I mean, we got a 4.8 Google review rating. I think we got 55, 60 reviews and only 3 or 4 saying something bad, and it ain't even that bad. It's just kind of little jazz, little nitpick here. Just like, you can't make everybody happy.
No.
You know, the floor was too slippery. We told you we could, you know, charge extra for, you know, a grip additive. You declined it. Now I'm the asshole because you didn't want to, you know, little shit like that. Yeah. So you just kind of take it to the chin and give a nice reply and move on. But yeah, it's been a transition. It's a lot of kinks you got to work out when you go from managing the field to in the office. But we got a nice little system set up now for the most part, and I'm always working on tweaking and refining it. You know, continuous improvement.
Yeah, I've noticed that, and I think well, as you know, we've been talking over the last few weeks. I mentioned to you in one of the talks that something that really impressed me about your website is that you've adopted some very, I guess, late technology in there, or current technology and sales strategies in there that I know where they come from. So I know this is really at the forefront of the industry. And I actually saw that on your website. I was like, wow, this is really cutting edge for websites in our industry. So I can see that you're proactive on this stuff all the time. And you've also shared with me that you're a big advocate of exploring things such as AI in business.
Yes, sir. So yeah, the website, I do appreciate that. I will state that website just got totally rebuilt. You know, we had a good website, but to me, it's a blessing and a curse. I'm somewhat of a perfectionist, which means everything is always a work in progress. Nothing is ever good enough. It's blessing and curse, right? But yeah, the website to me still has a long way to go. So, but for you to, you know, point out and recognize it and give me credit for it, I appreciate that. But like I said, not quite where I want it to be. But it's getting there, work in progress. As far as like the AI, yeah, I mean, that's a big factor in the back end of what I do, building out systems, processes, policies, you know, everything, assigning tasks, assigning jobs, just, you know, it's pretty much my assistant, you know, because the office consists of me, right? Versus like a bigger company, you have, you know, administrative assistant, you have payroll, you have this lady, that person. It's me. So, you know, I definitely have all my tools and gadgets and they help me out, you know, so that's a long road there too, playing with AI, you know. I got in the game a little late, you know, but I say late, I mean, it was over a year ago, but at that point we was already at like, you know, Chat GPT, you know, 3.5 or something. So to me, late, but there's some people still haven't quite jumped in yet, you know.
Well, that's actually it was really interesting to see how you're using the latest technology in what's very much a labor intense business as well. And I guess that all points to the whole commitment that you've made to getting out of the business and working on the business as well. And this is a transition that a lot of people in our trade struggle to move into. Was it part of your plan when you first started that this is what we're going to do? Did you have a plan when you first got into it? And what did that look like if you did?
So did I have a plan when I first started my business?
Yeah.
Not really. So, you know, I worked for my parents' business and, you know, and then I left there and I worked for a handful of other ones along the way, you know, and they got to the point where I was just doing, you know, sub work here and there, right? Like using their equipment before I even had anything. Like I already built the name and the brand. Like it was like me and my wife at the time. We were a package deal, like the dynamic duo, right? So everybody knew what they was getting with us. So kind of like freelanced, right? Started my business, my wife told me, some other friends told me that, why don't you start your own business? And it was like, yeah, that sounds great. That was always the goal and the dream. Mm-hmm. But it was like, I was really good at my job, running a crew, doing the floors, running the crew, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know shit about business. So in the back of my mind, it's like, yeah, but really it was like, it was terrifying because I don't know how to run a fucking business. I don't know how to run a job. I don't know how to run people, And then just kind of drop of a dime, I just became uncontent with the position that I was in, which keep in mind, it was a salary position. The year I left, I made $91,000, right? Like, you go to work, you're at work, you go home, you're chilling. So, I made more then than I think I've made, a lot of my years here working for myself. It's like we take on all this extra fucking responsibility and stress and burden for a lack of pay and lack of recognition, really, because then you're just a fucking asshole barking out orders. And now you become in this new world where nobody fucking understands you. You can't really explain this shit to people. They're not going to get it. If only other entrepreneurs understand what I'm talking about. I know you get it. Like, just the stress, the worry, the all the shit on your shoulders, right? And but no, there was no fucking plan. It was like, you know what? I'm gonna start my own fucking business. I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it, right? And it kind of just spiraled from there. I had a handful of people, and one in particular who really believed in me and subbed me a lot of work, set me up with equipment and helped me kind of get on my feet. So that's good to have people like that have that kind of faith in you, right? It's like to help set you up for success, right? And just went that route. And as we went, really just learned along the way, trial and error, story of my life. I've always went the road less traveled, and you come out beat up and banged up, but goddamn, if you didn't learn some shit along the way,
Yeah. So. That's I think that's very much the badass way, isn't it? For a lot of guys. We get into this industry. I think your story is so familiar for so many of those 14,000 members. I don't think obviously there's going to be uniqueness to everyone's path, but I think there seems to be this almost predictable entry into the industry for most people. But what happens after that is different for everyone where they go as well. One of the things that I wanted to ask you as well, I mean, living and breathing the industry and truly now being in business on your own as well. I mean, you're really living the lifestyle of the forum, if you like. Has there been anything that you've picked up off of the forum that you've gone, okay, that's really good, I'm going to try it in my own business and see what it does? Has there been anything that's actually you've gone, because of participation on the forum, you've actually been able to take something valuable away from that and input it into your own business?
In terms of what exactly? Could you
say knowledge sharing, advice, networking, anything like that? Resources effectively that have come from the Badass Forum.
Right. I mean, yeah, the forum helped me build my name, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So with that, over time, I created just organically a following, right? Mm-hmm. Whether, it's good or bad, either way, you either love me or you love to hate me, right? And it also turns out, luckily, there's more that love me that hate me, So, I just developed a relationship with a lot of guys in the industries, manufacturers, distributors that kind of see the reach of the platform. And I guess the ability, that I have with, say, certain products or tools or this or that. So, I mean, this definitely has its pros, right? And at the same time, I'm able to help out other members, recommend stuff that I know that works, that I tested, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess having such an active platform as well also pushes you to grow in your own right too, doesn't it? So even though you might not be able to put your finger on a specific thing that has come from it, the personal growth from having to manage something of such a magnitude and a community certainly pushes you as well in your own personal space.
Right. I mean, I can say there's been a lot of great relationships that have came out of it that have then went back into badass to benefit others, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know you're going to touch on this later. We'll get into it more. But say like the World of Concrete, right? We have an annual badass meet and greet, right? And, every year we try to outdo ourselves. We have sponsors that, a whole giveaway. And I forget the ridiculous number it was last year, how much, the dollar worth equivalent it was, but it was just outrageous, right? Like we had, a handful of sponsors, plenty packages. So that's where my resources were then turned back around and gave back. So, to me, it's not about just to hand out what I can get, right? It's, it's building that network, that connection, and then, back into the badass universe,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that one. The badass universe.
Yes, sir.
So when you started out building the badass universe, which is what it's become today, has it grown to what you thought it was going to, or has it terribly let you down?
So let's just say that when I started this, kind of like when I started my business, I'm very impulsive. I'm an all or nothing motherfucker, right? And sometimes there's the thought process isn't that fucking deep. Just being honest. It's like, I want this, boom. And then you jump in, sometimes it's like, oh shit. Now, what, you know what I'm saying? I've always just kind of, back then at least, you kind of figure it out along the way, right? And you learn the lessons and once again, to me, it's all about resilience and just overcoming and learning the lesson. Now at my older age, I sit back and try to make more plans and I'm mapping shit out, flow charts and fucking guides, But no, I never expected half of the life that I live now. I put in the hard work and, the dedication and just evolved over time,
Yeah, well, I'm really glad to hear that it's paying back. That's really good, and I think the attitude that you have is also it's quite typical of a lot of people in our industry as well, and I think it's also got to do with a lot of the reason for the pioneering in the industries because. There's a lot of other players in the game like yourself that have seen it and gone, this is what I want to do with that game. And they got involved and they pushed and pushed and pushed. And it's taken the whole industry along with them, and I think, with the players, with the likes of yourself and others, I think that's certainly pushed the industry along to where it happens to be today. Plans for the future for the Badass Forum. Is there anything that you can share with us?
Yeah. So yes and no. I'm like, we said earlier on the perfectionism, nothing's ever quite good enough, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm happy where I'm at, but we can do more, right? So, I do have big plans for Badass. My thing is just finding, I guess, I don't want to say the extra time because there isn't any of that, as we know. More so just like the team that can help me build that vision out, what I'm envisioning, because like in business, typically you have a visionary and an integrator. In some businesses, they're one, which is me here, right? So it's like I'm kind of limited right now, excuse me, in Blankenship. But I do have big, visions and ideas for Badass. It's just getting to that point, right? So, time will tell.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Speaking of future, do you have dates for the World of Concrete Badass get together?
You know what? Honestly, I should, but I do not. It's the badass way, right? I actually was supposed to have a meeting. I think it was actually scheduled for a week or two ago. I think I missed that one. A little preoccupied at times, right?
Yeah.
But that will be coming out here shortly. Try to get with my sponsors. Everybody trying to schedule everybody for the same day and time in this industry is a full-time job itself, right?
Absolutely.
So there's a lot that goes into that. But yeah, we'll be releasing that here, shortly.
Yep. Okay. Well, when you do get those dates, let us know, because we'd love to also promote them here down under as well, for those that are going, the badasses that are making their way to the World of Concrete. Make sure that that they're in attendance.
Yep, I'll definitely shoot that up for you.
You told me before that you do all aspects and have done all aspects of decorative concretes and concrete polishing. Are you a polishing guy or a coatings guy?
Yeah, so that's a fun question. So years ago, before I became self-employed, which, reminds you, it's like 5.5 years ago. If you'd asked me this, I'd have been like, polishing, fuck yeah, coatings, fuck you, right?
It's no other way.
Now it's a little different, when you get out there on your own. Keep in mind, in my early days when I was, the operations manager or foreman, whatever you call it, we did a lot of, it was all commercial work, right? Polishing. Mm-hmm. And, my dad, he was an estimator, right, in the office. He landed all the work. I'm out there in the field. I'm getting the shit done.
Yeah.
So, we did a handful of, like commercial epoxy projects, and, they turned out good, but we were new to the coating. So then you learn all the things that can go wrong very easily. So when you're having to redo a floor all of a sudden because of humidity in the air, or the thermostat wasn't set to this, or something from the HVAC flew in it, or, you got a frozen batch. Like, that was just so many variables back then. I told my dad, I said, fuck that shit. We're polishing. Don't get that shit no more. Like, fuck coatings. Because my thing was, I can polish a floor, and when I leave, it looks badass, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you could coat a floor, come out the next day, and you end up with what the fuck is this? What happened? I didn't like that, but obviously once you dive more into the coding world like I did when I became self-employed, I learned it all the hard way again, the outgassing and the vapor barriers and the tips and the tricks and the ins and the outs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, certainly.
So I mean, now, to me, I really don't have a personal preference. It's more just about like the use of the space. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, because there's a designated scope for each space, right? Like, would I put a flake floor in the kitchen? I mean, probably not. I mean, you could and make it look nice and do like a hybrid blend, but, to me, it's just the use of the space, right? So, but I mean, honestly, like, if I was in the field installing still, I'd probably say a flake floor, do a one day, go out there, grind it, poly, throw your flake, you're done. Versus polishing is very boring and repetitive and detail oriented, but that's my roots.
Yeah.
It's predictable. If you do step A through Z, your outcome is going to be this. But with coatings, you could do that shit and you end up with what you get sometimes beyond your skill or knowledge level, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a very expensive learning curve, isn't it?
Indeed. You know, to talk on that real quick, my first metallic floor, I think I lost about $20,000. I had to redo that shit 3 times, ongoing for like a month in between other jobs. Yeah, I've learned some very expensive lessons that makes you just want to say, almost fuck this shit, hang up your hat. But once again, that's where the resilience comes in, and you're like, I didn't come this far, only come this far. At that point, you're trying to prove the shit to yourself, not to nobody else.
That's right. Yeah, and those are the ones that make us, aren't they? Overcoming those projects. If someone came along today and said, you know, Justin, I'm going to offer you an obscene amount of money for this business, and you're not going to have to do it anymore, but not obscene enough for you to never have to work again, what would you go throw yourself at for work?
I wouldn't. You know, that's like just touching, you know, back like I've had that offer for the Facebook group too, right? For Badass. People have offered like to buy it, try to buy it. And it's like, you know, wanting me to give them a number. And it's like, well, I'm not the one that wants to sell it. You're the one trying to buy it. I think you should have a number, right? Mm-hmm. And, but yeah, you know, I've turned down a few offers for that for the Badass group. But no, for here too, Blankenship, it's my baby, right? It's, you know, like my life's work. And it's nowhere where I need it to be. And my goal is to pass it down to my children. So,
yeah.
You know, my daughter's homeschooled, right? So we pulled her out with all these school shootings going on, and she's homeschooled now. So, you know, she'll go to meetings with me. I'll go estimate jobs or measure them or this or that. So she's out there, you know, watching Daddy be salesman, you know, shake hands, meet and greet. I'll walk in, I'm like, yeah, that's right. Here's a $10,000 floor. By the time we walk out, I done upsold it. I'm like $20,000, you know? So, you know, and, you know, I'll get her on job sites too to go make material runs with the guys just to check in with them. And, you know, I'm showing her like, hey, this is a 70 metal. Look, you see that scratch here? Well, look, now the hybrid drain, you see how it's gone, you know, and teaching her the ropes. And, you know, she thinks that the metallics are super cool. And, you know, the flakes, she's actually done a few of those jobs with me. And I had her throw some flakes. But yeah, that's the goal, you know, pass it down, build it up to the point where it isn't just independent, owner dependent, how you have the systems and the people that run it, right? And then as the owner, you basically just monitor the people that are monitoring the systems, you know?
Yep. No, that's a great goal to work towards. How many children do you have, Justin?
3.
Yep. So it's they all interested in the family business for the future.
So 2 girls and a boy. The youngest, a 12-year-old, she thinks it's cool. She's interested. From what I gather, she wants to follow Daddy's footsteps, which is cool. But she's like, I want to do the work. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't want to go out there and do the hard work. You want to run the office. You know what I'm saying? And you know, my other daughter, you know, she cares more about, you know, makeup and girly stuff, and more power to you. I try to tell you can come be a floor artist, right? You can come do some of that stuff on the floor, you know. And then my son, he just turned 16. So yeah, he's thinking like, you know, we're going to get him out in the field eventually on some small residential jobs, put some hours in here or there, and start trying to, you know, pass it down to him. So, you know,
terrific.
The goal is, when I'm dead and gone, the Blankenship legacy will live on, you know?
Now that sounds terrific. Now that we're talking about family, what do you do when you're not working? What are some of the hobbies that you have?
Hobbies? What's that? So, you know, a lot of my time is dedicated to the business now. You know, a couple of months ago, it was pretty hardcore. Like I was putting in 100 to 140 hours a week. And it got to that point that I think all entrepreneurs get, where you get stuck in this cycle. You're trying to just power it all in, and it's just a phase, man. People who have been through it get it, and I had to, it took me a while to snap out of it, because I realized I was just burning myself out, just, going crazy. Right. So I've toned it down to more relaxed, say 40 to 60 hours, which, there's a certain point in time when you're an entrepreneur where, you kind of brag about how many hours you work, but then you get to the point where you realize it's actually the opposite. The less hours that you work is the more success. Because it's like, how many hours can you work in a week? Well, guess what? I realize I can fucking work all of them,
And then what?
Yeah. It's like, what do you got to show? You're just fucking irritated and ill and fucking, spinning your wheels. So for me, I actually have a computer program. I have a million of those, right? But I have one that actually, it's a productivity tracker. So it tells me where I'm spending my time on each task, on each website, on everything. And it gives me nice charts and, all this performance stuff. And it'll tell me the total hours that I worked. So now when I look at it and I'll see, like, I worked 34 hours, fuck yeah, that was a successful week. I worked less and I still made the money,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been working on trying to scale it down, but normally, like, on the weekends is when we go out and try to, dedicate the weekend to family outings. The kids enjoy, like, ATVs and off-roading and, dirt bikes, things like that. This last weekend, we was at the skating rink, and the week before last, we went to the skating ring, and it was the first time I was on skates. And I don't know how many years, and I'm thinking I'm gonna eat it, right, and bust my ass. And surprisingly, I'm the only one who didn't. The wife kids are slipping and falling, and the old man still got it. And I'm like, I didn't see that one coming. It started off rocky, but
yeah. Oh, come on, Justin. I know that you were sitting there going, don't hurt yourself. You've got a podcast to do soon. Don't hurt yourself, right?
Well, I'm thinking in my head, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. And I know when my ass falls, it's going to hurt, 225 pounds hitting the ground. It's going to hurt.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad you made it out. But you said everyone else didn't. Everyone else got more scratched up than you. No one actually broke anything, did they?
No, yeah, they're all lightweight, so they fall and they just hop right back up, right? So,
but no, that's great.
Yeah.
It's good that you're not working the weekend, mate.
Yeah, there was a day in time where it was 7 days a week, right? And I'm still guilty. I start every morning in the office, even on Saturdays. I'm set, like, my brain's like got this nocturnal alarm, like, 7:30, 8 o'clock, I'm up, right? So it's like first thing to do is go to the office, but then eventually, whatever we have going for the day, whatever, they'll pull me away and we'll get at it. And, I normally end up my nights back in the office trying to wrap something up. But, my thing was that I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with is that feeling of guilt, like when you're not working, like at a certain stage. So, like, because you have that constant like drive and like you feel like you've got to keep pushing, right? Because you're not where you want to be. But then it's just, I had to let it kind of soak in that, to enjoy the moment and embrace it, right? I'm not where I want to be. But shit, look back 3 years ago, I was out there pushing a grinder all day, coming in, sending the invoice at 10 o'clock, getting in bed at 12. So, I have got the business where I wanted to at that time. It's just since then, now I want more, So.
Yeah. But then I think we've all got to be disciplined in that perspective. I mean, it's 24 hours in a day. You could work all of them for all of your life, but then what did you do it for? And you're at a point right now where your kids, you got time with you invested in your family, your children. They're not going to get any younger, and And you do want them to come and run the business later on as well. So it's also got to look like something that's attractive too, right?
Right.
If dad's working 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, and saying, "Hey, when you get out of school, you can come and do this too," it's not very attractive.
Yeah, and at that time I caught a lot of, rightfully, as most what I caught a lot of heat from the wife and the kid because I'm spending all my time here. But it's like trying to explain to them that you're doing all this and get it to a point where you don't have to no more, right?
Yeah.
But then it's just phasing it out, task prioritization, and there's a whole lot of moving parts in this that I'm sure you're well aware of, and a lot of others are. But some of these smaller cats, they haven't quite hit that yet. But when it hits you, it'll hit you. Because my thing was, I never wanted to be what they refer to like chucking a truck. Right? You got the owner and one or two helpers, and you're out there running all of it. Like, no, my time, like to me, success will be like, when you can take a 30-day vacation and not have to pick up your phone once and your business still runs, now that's successful, right? So that's the goal, where I can be, dead in a box or on a beach in Hawaii and the business is just fine without me,
No, that sounds like a good outcome, good goal. I think the more so the beach in Hawaii though. I think that's a
little better.
outcome.
But one day I'll be in a box. And, the goal is, like I tell my kids, I'm putting all this work one day, so y'all won't have to, right? It's just like building it up,
Yeah, no, which I think is a really great way to look at it, Justin. And I think you talked about a few years ago when you were working really hard. And it was hard for the family. I know from experience, seeing that in my own father when I was growing up, the limited time that he had, and then of course when I got into my 20s, and particularly when I became a parent, I could really appreciate all of the hours that he was away from us and what he was doing, and what that what the outcome of that was for us. And I think that even if they don't see it or appreciate it now, I think it pays dividends in the later on, particularly when times get tough for them, because they've seen how Dad dealt with this when they were growing up. So I think that
right,
good example.
Like I told them, a lot of the stuff, whether it comes to parenting or my work, it's like you may not understand it now, but one day you will. Whether I'm here or not, then I don't know, but it'll all hit you one day. Like you said, I look back and my dad was always working, right? Which, he didn't start his business until the economy crashed, which, everybody was going out of business is when he started his, because he was one of the top estimators at a company. So they naturally laying off all the highest salary people. And, he done dedicated, all these years of these people. And, but yeah, growing up, he was just always gone, always working. Right. But I remember being a little kid and, he would drive home Big Mac dump trucks and, take me for a ride in the dump trucks. Or, I remember being a kid and he'd have me on a laser screed pour at 4 a.m. I'm watching this, as a little kid. So it's just in my blood,
That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, hopefully that legacy continues, man, into the next.
Yeah. That's what I'm working on.
Yeah, it's exciting. Well, I'm going to leave it there for today, Justin. I feel like we could talk work forever. There's a lot of stuff that's similar in our lives and similar experiences. We've got lots to talk about, but I'm going to wrap it up there for today, and I'm going to wait for those for all of those details for Water Concrete, and hoping that I get to catch up with you there. It's going to be a big show, and hopefully a lot of people from a lot of badasses are going to be able to make it there, because I'd like to meet a whole lot more people in this industry that and all the people who are building it, like yourself. It's been a real honor to have you on today and share with us.
Yep, I definitely appreciate you having me.
Until next year, mate.
All right. Thank you.
All right. See ya.
This show is proudly supported by Works Plus. Works Plus brings total solutions to all concrete grinding and polishing contractors to make it totally work for their daily operations. We hope you've enjoyed this show. Make sure to tune in each week where we're going to dive deep into all things related to concrete grinding and polishing. We're here to help you so that you can boost your outcomes on the floor.